I'd just like to welcome you all here tonight for tonight's CPD, which, as you know, has been a 2-hour presentation. Before we start, I'd just like to remind any dentists here who might be available next semester to help us out supervising our students. We're still looking for people if you're available, and if you're interested, there's a card outside. You can pick one up and contact us. Tonight's CPD took a fair bit of organising. Obviously there's expenses involved in bringing people up from Brisbane, and I'm pleased to say that the ADAQ supported this lecture tonight, as did Andrew Sandham and the dental school. It's possible that, and most likely that next year there will be a fee for CPD because we don't actually receive funding for this, so it's likely that next year there will be a small fee for CPDs. Right now, it's my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers for tonight. Most of you will know Dr. Brad Wright, immediate past president of the ADA Queensland, 30 years practicing dentist, qualified in law and business, and now running your own venture, I understand, as a consultant. Mr. Paul Andrews, CEO of the ADAQ as well, most of you would know him. Welcome to, please give them a warm welcome.
Thanks very much, Bob. Just quickly, the background to our being here and to talking to the people in the other locations is that last year when I was ADAQ president, I was supposed to come to Cairns, and for a variety of reasons I couldn't, so Paul and I undertook that we'd come this year and give a presentation along these lines, because this has only been done in Brisbane to date, hasn't it, Paul, to my knowledge? What Paul's going to talk, Paul's really got the practical hands-on everyday experience. I guess I'll be giving two perspectives. One is of a practitioner and also assisting ADAQ when these issues, but latterly as working as a barrister full-time for the last year and a half, I have a bit of a better idea of the legal system than most, perhaps, maybe not all, but most dentists. And so between Paul and I, we've got a few perspectives covered. So Paul will actually lead most of it, and a couple of times I'll be involved. And we really, because we've got a bit of time, and Bob's been generous enough to arrange more than the standard hour, it's a big topic. We're more than happy for questions at any time and happy to answer them and to go into detail. But we'd probably like to get the material across as quickly, as effectively as we could initially, and then have questions thereafter. I'm going to, I know there's some students here, I'm going to show exactly the same presentation that I give at University of Queensland every year on this topic as part of the tonight. It's brief, don't be scared. It's just what we give to the UQ students, because there's not a lot of legal education in the dental course up here, Bob, am I correct? Maybe there's a need for that to happen, and maybe if that's something that the faculty wants to happen, some assistance be given, because it is very important to have that background. But anyway, the topic of the night is complaints, claims and legal aspects of practice, and I'll let Paul start and I'll stand back for a while.
Thank you, Brad. Good evening, everyone. And to those in remote locations, it's very nice to be here. I see that the usual array of front chairs are electrified, so no one's in there. I've been at ADAQ now around 12 years, and I've been dealing with patient complaints, dentist issues associated with complaints and insurance claims for very much all of that time. It's a regular feature of my day at work, and sometimes I get frustrated about it, but I'm never surprised because there's always something new on the horizon. And it's just a matter of applying a bit of common sense and a bit of logic about how you go and deal with these things. I would add that, as a prelude, if you like, a lot of dentists react badly when they get a claim or they get a complaint, and they take it personally. Well, I'm going to talk to you about things related to that this evening. I find it disturbing that people should do that, because it is a fact of life that people will complain. So, this slide sort of suggests to you what might happen when you get a complaint. Very often people are quite aggro, dentists are quite aggro, even hygienists. We've got a couple of complaints and claims related to hygienists currently going, so I'm familiar with that. I understand there are a few in the audience this evening. Often it's a bit of a challenge to the ego. How dare they question my clinical capacity? I tried to do the right thing, etc., etc. Then it sort of mellows a little bit. What if they're right and I made a mistake? and what on earth am I going to do about it? It goes on from there. I might just set some scenes, if you like. The background we're dealing with here really is society is much more litigious than it was when I didn't have grey hair and was growing up, and people believed what doctors, dentists and other people who were professionals said. That doesn't apply anymore, really. They do to a point, but not everything. Public information, the internet is full of stuff. Type in the word fluoride or amalgam and see what you come up with, and see how much stuff is unscientific, unreferenced, but there, and people see it and believe it. As I said, there is a changing attitude to professionals, and there are plenty of free complaint services around the place, and online lodgement with the HQCC, the Health Quality and Complaints Commission, and the registration boards. So people can easily make complaints about any aspect related to your practice as a dentist. Why do you need to be prepared? This is a bit of a motherhood statement in some regards, but I guess the fact is that you will make a mistake at some stage. Something's bound to go wrong, or a patient just simply won't be satisfied. I can recall when I first started at ADAQ back in 1999, a former president at that time was about to retire, and he proudly boasted to me that in his 40-odd years of practice he'd never had a claim or a complaint. He got one in the last week, and he was totally devastated. So, you know, if you've gone through a long period of time without one, it's just a bit like lotto, except in reverse. Just hope your number doesn't come up big, but it is bound to, I can assure you. So, when things do go wrong, where do people go to? Well, first of all, they might come back to you, and if they do, that's a great thing. You've got an opportunity to solve it right then and there, and I would encourage you to do so. But if they don't, there are these agencies readily available to tackle the problem. The Health Quality and Complaints Commission we'll deal with in a little bit of depth shortly. The Anti-Discrimination Commission I won't dwell on. Most of you are familiar with anti-discrimination rules about race, religion, etc., pregnancy. But we do have some issues with that, and I've had a couple lately, or in recent years, mainly dealing with HIV patients who have been told the wrong thing either by a practitioner or by his staff and got very upset about it. Well-meaning intentions of both practitioner and staff on both occasions that I can think of, but they were interpreted by a patient who was obviously very sensitive quite the wrong way, and resulted in a complaint to, in one case, the Dental Board, and the other case to the Anti-Discrimination Commission. And the first one ended back in the Anti-Discrimination Commission because it was thought to be based on HIV. The other body is AHPRA. We'll deal a bit with AHPRA and the Dental Board. And insurance claims, I deal with those on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, and we'll tackle those a little bit. And if they don't fail, if all those agencies fail, then people have the opportunity to go to court. There's a bit of myth about going to court, I might add, but we'll come to that shortly. If I can just look at AHPRA. AHPRA has a big, broad perspective. They really don't get into the depth of complaints once they get to a clinical sort of stage. But really, when a complaint is made, it is dealt by a bureaucrat. Online, person fills in an incident form or a complaint form, and it goes to somebody who has probably no idea about the health sector they're dealing with, but they have to assess it and they go through a process. There are 10 health professions associated with it, and dentistry is just but one. They flick it off to the Dental Board, which has a state-based notifications committee, and they're the body that actually gets into the clinical side of things about where things went wrong, if you get to that stage. The Dental Board obviously has a range of other things, like they control your registration and do the standards, but they handle notifications, complaints, investigations and disciplinary hearings. So that's the key one, really. That's a website picture. I won't dwell on that. You can see that as well as I can on the internet. Their current focus. Advertising is getting a big mention through complaint agencies. Dentists are actually making complaints about other dentists. There is a dentist interstate who has made, to my knowledge, probably at least 20 complaints about individuals' websites, in particular testimonials, which are not allowed anymore. AHPRA has got to the stage where there have been so many complaints about advertising that they're about to start imposing fines. And the foolish thing about one of those incidents I can recall is a dentist undertook to change his website and didn't for one reason or another. And of course, the investigator goes back to check to make sure the dentist did what he promised to do. I'm terribly sorry, I'll change it, it won't happen again. 3 weeks later, the stuff was still there. So if you are a victim of AHPRA's investigation for advertising and you elect to do something to change your website, your way you advertise or whatever, then please do so. There are a few investigations currently going of Queensland dentists where both their professional standards are being looked at and their clinical standards. There is a difference. The professional standards one I can think of which comes most readily to mind is in the case of misconduct. Is the dentist involved taking some sort of substance, for example? Gambling, is that an issue? Is there inappropriate sexual conduct or something of that nature? And that is, I can think of a couple that are being investigated at the moment. Clinical standards relate obviously to clinical issues. Was that treatment a satisfactory, performed to a standard you would expect of a general practitioner of X number of years' experience, for example? And we have a few of those running too. That's what a notification page on the website looks like for AHPRA. If you haven't seen one, I suggest you just go and have a little surf through the web to have a quick look. Okay, the Health Quality and Complaints Commission, supposedly independent, impartial and acting in the public interest. It's a government organisation funded by the government. When funds get tight, they cut staff, and when they cut staff, the process slows down. At the moment, they're in full swing, and there are lots of complaints and issues before the Health Quality and Complaints Commission in Queensland. They will look at any aspect of dental care provided: diagnosis, privacy issues, inappropriate behaviour, etc. Their realm is supposedly 1 year within the incident being occurring or within 1 year of it being made aware of to the person involved. Now, I can assure you that isn't always the case. I can think of at least 2 recent instances where treatment issues back to 2004 and 2007 have been looked at, and where it is an issue of time, they will give the patient the benefit of the doubt, as this happens in law situations when solicitors are involved and cases go to court. They'll give the patient the benefit of the doubt. So you can expect, just because something happened 18 months ago, it's probably unlikely to escape from the HQCC if it's going to be subject to an investigation. That is a complaint form which you can see on the HQCC website. Very easy to make, very easy for someone to download, fill out and send into the HQCC. I might add we're running at probably, my recollection is something like 30 AHPRA issues so far this year, and for HQCC a significantly larger number, probably around 50. HQCC complaints, invariably they try to triage them in the first instance to decide whether they'll try and force it to early resolution or assessment. In the case of early resolution, what they try to do is send it back to the practitioner and ask the practitioner to please try and resolve it with the patient. There is a time frame here they must comply with by law. So if you get one of those, don't put it in the bottom drawer and you ask to try and resolve it, see what you can do. But I would first ask you to call me so we can have a discussion about what needs to be done and how you go.